Hello everyone. In today's session, we'll discuss about Dynamics 365 Supply Chain Management, Product Information Management module. What is Product Information Management? Product Information Management in Dynamics 365 Supply Chain Management is for the creation and maintenance of an enterprise product repository. This repository has the definition of all the products an organization buys, stores, distributes, manufactures, and sells. In Dynamics 365, you can have different type of products and subtypes. There are two product types, item and service. Item is something that you buy and use for consumption or distribution sale. You include items in the production of manufactured items, that is bill of material. Service. You use services, for example, to quantify hourly services or maintenance, etc. There are three product subtypes: products, product masters, and product variants. A product is usually identifiable product. It serves as a core product that doesn't vary. That's why you cannot associate product dimensions with the product definition. Product masters. Product masters define how distinct products are described and how they behave in business processes. Based on these definitions, you generate distinct products. These distinct products are known as product variants. Based on the choice of configuration technology, you can either predefine the product variant using a product dimension of its master or configure it using a product configuration tool. As you can see on the right side, this is a small example of what a product master, and product variant is. Product is something, let's say a motor or a tetra pack of a drink. It doesn't have any sort of variants. Product master, for example, is a t-shirt. Now this t-shirt can have multiple sizes and colors which are defined as a product variant. Let us go through some of the discussion points in today's session. Difference between item and services, color, size and style master, product variants, products and product masters, unit conversions, assigning and creating a product category, releasing an item to the required entity, released product details, product information management workspace such as release product maintenance, and product variant model definition, definition of bill of material and formula. In this session, we will discuss the creation of products and product masters. So to create a product and product master, you need to go to product information management module under products, all products and product master. Now this is one list page which has details of both products as well as product masters. Now if you wish to navigate to a list page which only has details of products or product masters, you have a provision for that as well. For the time being, for the creation of a new item, let's go to products and product masters. Starting with the creation of a new product, on the top you need to click on new. As you can see, the first field is basically the product type, which defines whether it is an item or service. Item basically means a stocked item which can be inventorized, and a service is a non-inventorized item. For example, maintenance, cleaning services, etc. Right below the product type, I have the values for product subtype, which is either product or product master. Any item that doesn't have any variant, for example, size, color, or style, belongs to product category, and any item which has size, color, or style, or any of these combinations belong to product master category. In this demo session, I'm going to create a product which doesn't have any variants, so the value that I select here would be product. Under the identification in the product number field, you can either enter a product number or have the system generated for you. In this case, I'm going to have it manually entered. As you can see, the item that I'm going to create is BMX helmet for kids. So I've entered the product name over here. The search name gets automatically copied from the product name. However, you may wish to change it. And under the retail category, I have selected a category which belongs to BMX helmets and the respective category, that is kids BMX helmet. In Dynamics 365 supply chain, you can have n number of categories created in the system. For example, there's a category which is created for sales, and there's a category created for retail as well. As you can see, it forms a tree structure, and under action sports, I have BMX biking, inline skating, and skateboarding. And further under BMX biking, I have BMX helmets and BMX parts and accessories. The whole point of having a category created in the system and having it attached against an item is so that you can have the right reporting done. As soon as you give these basic details, you can click OK to create a new product. Once a product has been created, you enter the details page where you can further give the detailed description of the item that you've recently created. You may also attach the product image. Further onto the configuration side, you need to specify the dimension groups, that is the storage dimension group. Now in the system, based on your stocking, you can decide whether the item needs to be put only in site and warehouse or in a dimension level which belongs to site, warehouse and location. Now that you have decided the item needs to be put in a site and warehouse, you further need to decide whether the item is batch or serial tracked. For example, in this case, you can have multiple tracking dimensions created in the system and can select the respective one. For the time being, I'm having none as a tracking dimension selected because this item that I've created doesn't have any sort of tracking. If you wish to have the item name created in multiple languages, then go to translations, select the right language, and then have the translated text entered here in the description and product name. It is also possible that the item could be transacted in multiple unit of measures. For example, at the time of purchasing this particular item, it could be bought in boxes and the inventory is stored in pieces and the sales could be either in pieces or in boxes. To have the unit conversion defined for an item, go to unit conversions. As you can see, under the standard conversions, you have all the standard conversions defined by the system itself. Moving on to intra-class conversions, here as you can see, I have given a definition saying that one box equals 2 pieces. The to unit being the smallest unit and the from unit being the higher unit. Now both these units belong to the same class. For example, if I were to convert a unit from box to kilos, then I'll have to go to inter-class, which means the entire class of the units that I'm going to define is different. As per the example, I have given a definition of both the units having the same class. Once all these basic information has been set, on the top, you need to click on Release Product to have this item newly created released into the respective entity where you need to do the transaction. So click on Next. Select the respective entity where you need to have this item released. You can either select one linked legal entity or you can select multiple legal entities. So let's say I'm having this item released into two legal entities, USMF and USP2. This is a confirmation of the release product creation and then say finish. As soon as you have the item released into the respective entities, on the action center, you get to see that the releasing of the particular item has been completed. Before we move into the release product details, let's take another example of a product master. Let's see how size, color and style are defined and how we can create different variants in the system and have them attached to a product master. The process of creating a product master is also the same. You need to navigate to product information management. You may either go to products and product masters or you can go directly to product masters. For the time being, let's go to all products and product master and create a new product master. Click on new. Select the item type as item as it is an inventorized item. Under the product subtype, select the value as product master. As you can see, the moment I've selected the value as product master, there are certain other fields which is populated, for example, the product dimension group. So you can see the item that I'm going to create is a high intensity workout shoes. So I've given the same product name here. The search name has automatically come in. However, I can change it. I've selected the category which belongs to apparels and footwear, and under apparels and footwear, men's footwear and men's running shoes. The product dimension group is basically to decide whether the item that I'm going to create has variants or dimensions such as size or color or style or a combination of either of them. In this case, I'm going to select the product dimension group, color and size. Once you have all these basic details set up, click on OK to have the new product master created. The details which I said earlier remains the same, except that here on the top, the product dimensions button has gotten enabled. Since I selected the product dimension group as size and color, you can see that under the product dimensions, I have two configurations. One is the size and one is the color. Click on New and have the sizes selected. Now the size basically comes from the size master. So here I'm selecting 10 and let's select another one, 11. Let's go to colors and have the colors also defined. Black and let's say blue. So as soon as you have the product dimensions created, you may move on to product variants form. And you can also decide to have the system suggest the variants for you. For example, click on variant suggestions, say select all, and then say create. As you can see, based on the sizes and colors that you have created, the system has created a permutation combination of the sizes and colors as a variant. All the other details are the same as that I've mentioned earlier at the time of product creation. The only exception being here in this case, the product dimension group has come. So I can select the storage dimension group and the tracking dimension group and then say OK. Once the dimension groups have been set, if there is any particular conversion which you need to set from a higher unit to lower unit, you can set that in the unit conversions form. Now, unless and until a unit conversion has been created and set up against a particular item, you will not be able to sell it in different units. So it is mandatory if the item has any separate units in which it is being transacted. Once all these details have been set up, you can go to release product and follow the same procedure that was shown in the products. You can select the legal entities. You can even select which variant you would want to release. Now in this case, I'm having all the variants released. Say next. Select the respective legal entity or legal entities and then say create. This is a confirmation screen. Say finish. Earlier we created the item and released it into two legal entities, USMF and USP2. Now let's go to the release products and see the item that we had created. You can navigate to product information management, products and released products. As you can see, the release product contains all the items that have been released into this particular legal entity. Now you can either filter the item that you've created with the item code, product name, search name, product type, etc. Now all these ribbons that you see are filterable. Let's filter it with shoes. As you can see, the filter criteria that I had given was shoes. It is not possible for all the users to know exactly the name of the item that you have created. However, there is a provision in the system whereby you can filter a particular item based on a keyword. Apart from the release products form, there is release products by category, which makes it much more easier for the users. At the time of creation in all products and product form, you can link a particular item with a respective category. Now, I know for a matter of fact that the item that I had created belongs to shoes, and I know which category I had created that item in. So I'm navigating to apparels and footwear, men's footwear, and men's running shoes. As you can see, the system has basically filtered that item which I had created and linked with men's running shoes. This makes it much more easier for the users to filter. Now let's go into the release product category and see more details pertaining to the item. Before we move forward with the release product details, let's take some time out to understand what is the difference between all products and product masters and release products. In all products and product masters, we gave the basic details such as the item code, the item name, the detailed description of the item, unit conversions, product categories, etc. Now these are details which will not change irrespective of the legal entity that it has been released to. Now in released products, there could be certain details which are different from the other legal entity in which the item has been released. For example, the purchasing unit of an item which is in USMF could be different from the purchasing unit of the item in USP2. There could be certain details such as the costing which is different in these two entities. Similarly, in terms of financial dimensions for reporting purpose, what is assigned in USMF need not be the same dimensions which are attached in USP2. Let us now proceed with the details in the release products form. As you can see, these are basically the fast tabs and they are pretty much self-explanatory. What is on the top is basically called the action pane. The general contains information that are basic and related to the item. For instance, most of these details have come from all products and product master. Now, there is one detail which is very important, that is the item model group. The item model group decides the costing methods and cost recognition as well as the inventory policies. Now, under the costing method and cost recognition, it decides whether the item is a stocked or a non-stocked item. It decides what is the inventory model in which the costing is supposed to take place, whether it is FIFO, LIFO, weighted average, standard cost to moving cost. It decides whether the item is supposed to have its financial and physical inventory tracked and posted to the ledger. Now, under the inventory policies, you decide whether the item is physical negative inventory or financial negative inventory. Physical negative inventory means you can keep selling the items without having stock. Financial negative inventory means without having a financial cost related or associated with the item, you can have the item sold. It also decides whether quarantine management needs to be enabled. There are certain validations which can also be associated with the particular item. For instance, you can decide whether registration requirements are supposed to take place before you do the GRN of a particular item, whether the GRN is supposed to be mandatory. Similarly, in case of sales, whether picking is supposed to be mandatory, whether posting of a delivery note is supposed to be mandatory. In terms of reservation, you can specify whether the item is FIFO date controlled or it is supposed to reserve the stock based on backwards from the ship date. You can also specify in terms of sales related transactions whether the item reservation is supposed to be manual or supposed to be automatic. Now, in case the item is batch tracked, in terms of reservation, you can decide whether the system is supposed to reserve the same batch of the item that has been allocated in the sales order. If it is a batch tracked item and is associated with the expiry, you can specify whether the reservation is supposed to be FIFO, which means the system is going to reserve the first expiring stock first. If the item is batch tracked, you can also have the batch associated with the disposition code. You can have multiple disposition codes associated with the transaction. For example, I can have a disposition code which is called available, which means that there is no problem with the quantities that is associated with the batch. I can have a batch disposition code created called damaged, whereby I can associate it with the particular batch number, and if that particular batch is used in any of the transactions, I can decide whether the system is supposed to block the reservation, block picking, block the shipping, and in terms of production, again block the reservation picking and posting of the production picking journal, and in case of inventory transfers, reservation picking and shipping. There's also a provision for tracking the vendor batch details. For example, if the purchase registration is enabled, the system gives a provision to enter the vendor batch number, the manufacturing date, and the expiry date. Also, if you have a specified list of approved vendors, you can tell the system whether it is supposed to validate against the approved vendors list at the time of purchase transaction. Moving on, in the Purchase Fast tab, it has all the details that are related to procurement of a particular item. For instance, the default purchase unit, what is the under delivery and over delivery percentage. You can specify a buyer group and a default supplier. You can specify the default item sales tax group of an item. You can mention whether the latest purchase price of an item is supposed to be tracked by the system. You can specify the default purchase price and also the line discount group and multi-line discount group. Similarly, for purchase related transactions, if you have multiple items that are associated with this item, you can have a supplementary item group created and associated with a group of supplementary items. Just like how the Purchase Fast tab was used to define values for purchase related transactions, the Sell tab is used for defaulting the values for sales related transactions. For example, the default sales unit, over delivery and under delivery percentage, the item sales tax group, etc. Also, you have a provision to select the sales price model. The sales price is supposed to be calculated based on the contribution ratio or the charges percentage, which is defined over here. Otherwise, you also have a provision to decide based on what the base price is supposed to be calculated on top of the purchase price or based on the cost price. You can also have a provision to have the base sales price of this particular item defaulted in the company currency. Now, when this item is used for any purchase or sales related transactions, the system is going to apply the purchase price and the sales price based on the exchange rates. Similar to the purchase, you have a provision to have the line discount group, multi-discount group, supplementary item group, etc. defined. Also, there's one additional feature which is for selecting the alternative item. You can have an alternative item selected over here and can decide when it is supposed to be applied, in case nothing is there in the inventory or always. Let us suppose it is a seasonal item. You can have the start date and the end date for the sales also defined in the Sell tab. The foreign date has further details pertaining to the item, for example, the commodity where it belongs to, the charges percentage for this particular commodity, the country, region, and the state province of this particular item. Moving on to the manage inventory tab, here you can define the weight measurements, the physical dimensions such as the depth, width, height, volume, etc. Now, if this item is batch or serial tracked, you can have a batch number group or a serial number group associated with the particular item. Now I'll explain what the batch number or a serial number group has in its master. In the batch or serial number group, you can decide if the item is batch or serial tracked, whether the batch number or the serial number is supposed to be automatically generated at the time of transactions. If the batch number or the serial number is supposed to be automatically generated based on a number sequence code, or whether it is supposed to be manual, or whether it is supposed to be automatically generated based on a combination of transaction date and the reference number of the transaction. Also, you have a provision to define the over delivery and under delivery for transfer orders from one warehouse to the other. You can default the base inventory unit of the item. Now, depending on what you have selected in the item model group, if the item is expiry tracked, then these fields get enabled, whereby you can define the shelf advice period in days, the shelf life period in days, and the best before period in days. The yield percentage is something which is used in manufacturing. For example, let's say that I'm into process manufacturing, and if I have the yield percentage defined as 90, it means that the system is going to consume extra 10 percentage of the items that I have defined in the bill of material. Moving on to the engineer fast tab, it has details of production and manufacturing. You can have the default consumption unit specified here. You can also specify the calculation group based on which the cost is supposed to be associated with the production orders. You can specify what type of production type it is, whether it is a co-product, byproduct, a planning item, a bill of material, or a formula in case of process manufacturing. The plan action tab is related to master planning. In the system, you can associate every item to a coverage group. You can have different coverage groups created in the system and have the respective coverage group defaulted on the item card. In the manage cost fast tab, you decide what is the item group of an item. The item group basically serves two purposes. One is that you can have the items categorized based on its type, and based on every type you can have the ledger accounts associated for the sales orders, purchase orders, inventory, and production. Cost group is something which you can have it associated with the item in case you are using manufacturing. You can also specify whether the latest cost price is supposed to be tracked by the item. And also the system is going to capture the latest cost price if this particular parameter is enabled. If you need to classify the item based on its usage and priority, you can have the items classified as A, B, or C. Dynamics 365 has a dedicated project management and accounting module. Similar to the item group, if you're using project management and accounting, you can have different categories created for a particular project and have the respective project category associated with the item. The whole point of having the project category associated with the item is similar to the item group, wherein the ledger accounts are going to be linked with the respective category. Moving on to the financial dimensions. You can have the financial dimensions defaulted on the item card so that whenever this particular item is used on any transaction, the financial dimensions are automatically going to populate onto the transactions and then further onto the vouchers when it is posted. Now that we have explained all the fast steps, let's move on to the action pane and see what it has. So it has products, purchase, sell, manage inventory, engineer, plan, manage project, manage cost. Pretty much the same what is defined over here in the fast tab. Let's see what the difference is. Now on the action pane, you can always apply a template, which means that whenever you create a new item, you don't have to manually fill in all the details. If you have separate templates created based on the type of item, you can always apply the template and the system would automatically fill in all the fields with the respective data. Now earlier when we were creating an item in all products and product masters, for this particular item I had the variants defined. As you can see under the product master, under release product variants, I can see all the variants that I had created in all products and product masters. Nevertheless, I also have an option to create new variants over here as well. Similarly, if there are any other languages in which I need to account the product description, then I can go to translations. I can have the product dimension groups specified, which would automatically come from the main products. Now, if I have missed it over there, then I can have it specified over here in the release products. The same applies for the product categories and the unit conversions. Moving on to the purchase fast action pane, you can view the prices if they are defined, that is the purchase price list or the discounts. I can create a purchase price list from here. I can set up the approved list of vendors and the effective period from when to when they are supposed to be used. I can see the supply overview for the purchases, the open purchase order lines for this pertaining to this item, the period statistics of this particular item. And under related information, I can also account what is the vendor's product code for this particular item and its description. Moving on to the sell tab, similar to the purchase, I have details of the discount. I can create a price list. I have information related to ATP that is available to promise. I can see all the sales order lines which are open with this particular item, the period statistics of this particular item in terms of sales orders. Now, similar to the purchase, in terms of sales, I can also account what is supposed to be the customer's item code and its description. And if this item is used in any sort of commission calculation, I can have it set up or reviewed from here. Under the Manage Inventory action pane, I can see the on-hand inventory, all the transactions pertaining to this particular item, all the batch numbers that are related with this item, and the lot numbers. Default order settings are used to default certain values for type of transactions. For example, for purchase orders, I can set up what is supposed to be the default site and warehouse where I'm going to receive the item. I can have the purchase quantity, the multiples, the minimum order quantity, the maximum order quantity, the standard order quantity defined. I can specify whether this particular item is supposed to be stopped for any sort of purchase related transactions. I can specify the purchase lead time of this particular item. The same applies for inventory as well as sales orders. Moving on, I can have the details related to the warehouse items, the barcodes, the physical dimensions, that is the height, width, depth, etc., the GTIN codes. Quality in terms of non-conformance, quality item groups, I can have different quality groups associated with the items. And if I'm using this particular item in terms of any packaging, I can have the bulk item conversion defined here, as well as the consolidated on hand pertaining to this item if it is related to packaging. I can have the batch attributes as well as the compliance related details. Moving on to engineer action pane, I can have the BOM defined. Now it all depends on what production type that you have selected over here in the engineer fast tab. Since I have selected BOM, it means it is related to discrete manufacturing and it has enabled the provision for defining the BOM related details. Similarly, if I have the item selected as formula, you can see instead of BOM, it would enable all the details under the formula. Let's take an example of BOM and see how the BOM is defined. So I've selected the production type as BOM, and as you can see, the details under the BOM has gotten enabled. Let's create a simple BOM and see how the details are accounted in Dynamics 365. So as you can see, I can have multiple BOM versions created in the system. However, for the same site and warehouse where I'm doing the production, I can only have one of the versions activated. Now, under each of the version, I can specify what is supposed to be the bill of materials. As you can see, I have selected all the items which needs to be consumed. If it is a product master, I can have the respective size and color which needs to be consumed with the respective quantity and unit. Now, once the BOM version is defined, it is mandatory that the BOM version needs to be approved. As you can see, the approved checkmark is enabled also with the detail of the person who has approved it. However, you can see the active is not enabled because, as I said, for the same site and warehouse, you can only have one BOM version activated. Now you can see that this is the BOM version which has been activated and all the others have basically been disabled. Having the bill of material version and the line setup, whenever you use this particular item for any sort of production orders, automatically the system is going to bring in the items which it needs to consume. The plan action tab is related to the master planning details. You can see the supply schedule of this particular item. If this item is used in demand forecast, you can set up the demand forecast, the supply forecast and inventory forecast. You can set up the item coverage, specifying the minimum and maximum quantity based on which the item is supposed to be replenished in the warehouses. It can be dependent on the setup. For instance, it can either be based on a minimum or based on minimum and maximum. If the planning is set up based on minimum, then whenever the stock on hand in the system goes below the minimum quantity, the system is going to suggest you to create planned purchase orders or planned transfer orders in order to reach the minimum quantity that you've given here. Now, if it is min-max, then whenever the stock on hand goes below the minimum, the system is going to suggest you to create a planned purchase order or a planned transfer order to reach up to the maximum quantity. Under the Manage Project action pane, you can see the project details pertaining to this item. For instance, the project statement. I can have the cost control, invoice control, everything set. Also the cash flow related to this particular item. Now, if this item is used in any sort of transactions, I can always see what is the committed cost against this particular item. Moving on to Manage Cost action pane, I can set up the cost price of this particular item. Let's say that we are using standard cost and I want the costing to be recorded in the system, and the system needs to use the costing based on what I've set up, then I can always have the cost price setup over here under setup. Let's move on to the most important workspace what is available in product information management. As you can see, the release product maintenance and the product variant model definition. Let's go to the release product maintenance and see what it has got to offer. Under the summary, you can see all the recently released products, the products which have been stopped for sales, purchase related transactions, and inventory related transactions. Under the released products, you can see the open cases which are associated with the released products and the recently released items. The two items that you can see on top of the list are the items which we had created during the demo. And as you can see, it is giving us some information saying that there are two fields which are having missed values. For example, let's go into the high intensity workout shoes. And under product, let's click on validate and see what has been missed. As you can see, it has thrown an info log saying values to be specified for the fields inventory unit and sales unit. This makes it easier for the person who is maintaining the product master to know whether there are any fields which have been missed and to take necessary actions. Under the links, we have information for the cases, the products, that is the product details, dimension groups, release products by category, etc. The dimension group setups, the attributes, unit of conversions, packing material related setups, and the product information management configuration. Also on the top left corner, you have a provision wherein you can create a new product or a case related to a product. You can also configure the workspace according to your needs. Let's now navigate to the product variant model definition workspace. The product variant model definition is more related to product master. As you can see, under the summary, it shows a list of product variant models with no predefined variants. I have a provision to go to all product masters to the open cases which are related to the product masters, product configuration models with no approved versions, product masters which are created but not yet released, product variant models with predefined variants which needs to be released. And under the product variant models, you can see all the open cases with no predefined variants and predefined variants which are not yet released. And under the quick link, you have cases, products, product variant models, and domain definitions. For example, the size groups, the color groups, style, the style groups, translations, attributes, and constraints. Also, on the top left corner, you have a provision to create a product master and a case. You also have a provision to release the products from here itself by adding them onto this grid. Also, you can configure the workspace according to your needs. I believe we discussed all the points listed here, and thank you. Let's move on to the most important workspace what is available in product information management. As you can see, the release product maintenance and the product variant model definition. Let's go to the release product maintenance and see what it has got to offer. Under the summary, you can see all the recently released products, the products which have been stopped for sales, purchase related transactions, and inventory related transactions. Under the released products, you can see the open cases which are associated with the released products and the recently released items. The two items that you can see on top of the list are the items which we had created during the demo. And as you can see, it is giving us some information saying that there are two fields which are having missed values. For example, let's go into the high intensity workout shoes. And under product, let's click on validate and see what has been missed. As you can see, it has thrown an info log saying values to be specified for the fields inventory unit and sales unit. This makes it easier for the person who is maintaining the product master to know whether there are any fields which have been missed and to take necessary actions. Under the links, We have information for the cases, the products, that is the product details, dimension groups, release products by category, etc. The dimension group setups, the attributes, unit of conversions, packing material related setups, and the product information management configuration. Also on the top left corner, you have a provision wherein you can create a new product or a case related to a product. You can also configure the workspace according to your needs. Let's now navigate to the product variant model definition workspace. The product variant model definition is more related to product master. As you can see, under the summary, it shows a list of product variant models with no predefined variants. I have a provision to go to all product masters to the open cases which are related to the product masters. Product configuration models with no approved versions. Product masters which are created but not yet released. Product variant models with predefined variants which needs to be released. And under the product variant models, you can see all the open cases with no predefined variants and predefined variants which are not yet released. And under the quick link, you have cases, products, product variant models, and domain definitions. For example, the size groups, the color groups, style, the style groups, translations, attributes, and constraints. Also, on the top left corner, you have a provision to create a product master and a case. You also have a provision to release the products from here itself by adding them onto this grid. Also, you can configure the workspace according to your needs. I believe we've covered most of the points listed here. Thank you.